Sacrifice and offering you do not desire, but you have given me an open ear. Burnt offering and sin offering you have not required. Then I said, Here I am. In the scroll of the book it is written of me. I delight to do your will, O my God. Your law is within my heart. We have before us this morning two ancient texts from the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, which have to do with major themes from ancient times and really for all times. Themes like servanthood, specifically serving the Lord, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Jacob, the God of Jesus Christ. Another theme is mission. What are the people of God to do in order to serve the Lord, to carry out the Lord's mission to the ends of the earth? Another theme is sacrifice. In these passages, sacrifice refers to the required religious rituals of the time, rituals which were performed for their own sake and seen as necessary to please or appease God. These passages raise the questions, what sacrifices does God really require of God's people? How shall God's people, God's servants, go about serving the Lord? When all is said and done, what does the Lord require of us? The servant in the Isaiah passage, the one who is talking, is clearly Israel. The Lord called me before I was born. While I was in my mother's womb, he named me, the servant says. And he said to me, You are my servant, Israel. In other words, this servant, Israel, was an idea in God's mind before the world was even created. Before God called Abraham in Genesis chapter 12 to leave his country and his kindred and his father's house for a land which God would show him, before God called Moses to lead Israel out of slavery in Egypt, it was in God's mind before even the earth was created that on earth there would be a people of God set aside to serve God, to preach God's will for all humanity, to model for all the world what God had in mind when God created humans. That servant, that nation, was Israel. But there was something greater than any one nation in God's mind. In the bigger picture, Israel, the people of God, would not only be the Hebrew people, not only Israel strictly speaking, but a larger people of God, the whole people of God, in the sense that Arthur Waskow describes it. Arthur Waskow was a Reconstructionist Jewish rabbi. As a matter of fact, I think he may have been so reconstructed that he didn't like to be called rabbi. I could be mistaken about that on a number of levels. But the thing about Arthur Waskow, he wrote a couple of books about the meaning and implication of Jewish faith, God Wrestling, and God Wrestling Part 2, Round 2, I should say. In God Wrestling Round 2, Arthur Waskow talks about Israel, about what that term really means. We see the beginnings of all this back in Genesis in the story of Jacob. Jacob is the younger son of Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob is something of a conniver. He tricks his older brother Esau into giving him his inheritance. He tricks his father Isaac into giving him the blessing meant for his older brother. Needless to say, this kind of stuff does not win him any friends or endear him to his family. He ends up, with the help of Rebekah, his mother, running for his life from his brother Esau and spending the next 20 years or so as the servant of a distant cousin in a faraway land. The cousin is also a conniver. He spends 20 years trying to take advantage of Jacob. Really, it's 20 years of back and forth between Jacob and the cousin, each trying to outwit the other. Finally, Jacob flees, taking his 2 wives, who are the cousin's sisters, and all of his herds and livestock with him. He decides to return home to the presumably not so loving arms of his brother Esau. Needless to say, this turn of events gets him thinking about how his life has gone so far. It gets him to taking the proverbial good hard look at himself. Just before arriving at his homeland, he ends up at a river named Jabbok. There on the shore of the river Jabbok, he wrestles with an angel. Waskow points out that Jabbok is Jacob turned inside out. You can think about that for a moment. Yeah, it really is. That angel that Jacob wrestles with is pretty much understood by all commentary to be God. Jacob is wrestling with God, and he, Jacob, prevails, but not before that angel throws his hip out of joint. As the angel is departing, the angel gives Jacob a new name. That new name is Israel. Israel. Israel in Hebrew means one who wrestles with God. And so Arthur Waskow concludes that ultimately is who or what Israel means. Israel is anyone who wrestles with God. If you ever, now or in the past, find yourself wrestling with God, trying to figure out what in God's name God wants from you, wrestling figuratively, if not literally, if you ever have found yourself wrestling with God, you are part of Israel, regardless of what your ethnic, cultural, or religious background might be. So saith Arthur Waskow, and I agree with him. Well, I kind of took the long way around here, getting to where the point that I wanted to make, didn't I? Our Isaiah passage this morning deals with Israel. Israel is called to be the servant of God, called to be a light to the nations, bringing God's salvation to the ends of the earth. And believe me when I say that I don't mean to hijack the faith of other religions or to go all supersessionist or anything like that, but I don't think it's stretching a point too far that the people of God comprises any and every people dedicated truly to serving God, the God whose nature we see revealed in our scriptures and traditions. And that, of course, would include us. And the people of God we are called to be a light to the nations that shines out to the end of the earth, to in effect shine God's presence out to all the earth. So, here we are, the people of God. It was in God's mind before the beginning of time that there would be a people on earth set apart and devoted to serving God. And we are a part of that people. Yes, before the beginning of time, we were on God's mind. And what does the God who has called us and set us apart require of us? Rituals? Sacrifices? Our psalm for this morning also addresses that very question. And it's interesting that it happens to have been Marge who was liturgist this morning, because she has a number of times argued that faith is a verb. Now, I'm not going to go on record as agreeing or disagreeing with that. I'm not only a preacher and dedicated student of the Bible, I was an English teacher in a previous life, and a statement like that just sets all kinds of tapes to rolling around up here in this aging brain of mine. Suffice it to take the thought at its face value. Faith is something that you do. It's an action. The prophet Micah raises that very question too and answers it. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? May I humbly say that we are a part of Israel, the people called and set apart from before time began to love, to serve, yes, to wrestle with God. For what have we been set apart? What specifically shall we do? There's no hard and fast, cut and dried, one-size-fits-all answer to that. It is a question each and every one of us must ask as we engage in our daily wrestle with God. We must ask that desperate, wrestling question of the Lord, and yes, demand an answer. We can have faith that the Lord will answer if we wait patiently. We can always pray for patience. Lord, I want patience and I want it now. What specifically must we do? Engage with God daily, every one of us. Tackle God, wrestle with God until we get an answer. And mind you, as Old Testament scholar Phyllis Tribble has pointed out, that God wrestle could just leave you with something out of joint. You might just go away limping. But each of us, part of the people of God, is called to seek God's kingdom as it relates to us and share the answers we get with the gathered people of God. What does the Lord require of you? Perhaps time spent at the community meal? Volunteer with Trials for Hope? Become a liturgist? I promise I won't pick on you like I picked on Marge. Engage in a Bible study. Work with youth. Work with children. Start a new ministry no one has thought of yet. Perhaps a ministry to immigrants. What does the Lord require of us? Do justice. Love kindness. Walk humbly with your God. Wrestle with God. How does all that play out with you? Where might God be dragging you? To what new land do you think God might be calling us, the people of God? Amen.